Are we ready to go, Kim? Who is that? Who is talking on here? Is she in there now? Christina, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you guys see
Okay.
me?
I introduced you, Christina. I introduced you already, but I'll just kind of give them a lowdown here again. Ladies and gentlemen, we have this young lady that's going to speak to us for just a little bit. And again, we'd like to say, Christina, please take your time. Don't hurry. The folks are here eating breakfast as they're listening to you, and we'd like to welcome you here this morning. Ampete washte yuha, daya hiwana hi hushia ke nitaki epi. Gupta, Christina Johnston. Christina?
Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, you froze. You froze on the screen.
Oh.
You froze on the screen. We thought you was looking mean at us. Oh.
I do have a good serious mean looking face. I don't mean it.
You must have res Wi-Fi because we can't hear you, Christina. Hey. We still can't hear you, Christina. You must have an issue over there. Yep, classic res Wi-Fi.
Every time she's disconnecting, it's rebooting. Christina, if you could.
Can you guys hear me now? Hello. Hello. Oh.
We can hear you.
Hey, instead of a phone, we just FaceTime each other, eh? But yeah, he was going to be up here with me and just kind of observe and whatnot. But we had our good friend Marcel Bullbear had passed away, and so he stayed down there to help out with the services. Oh, Earl. I used to like take him with me. He goes all over and we talk, and he really could tell Inktomi stories and use all the antics and stuff. And he even gets into when the Inktomi sticks his head in that buffalo head, boom, boom, knocking his head. He really says it crazy in the language. He's a Lakota speaker, but they really like that, the old folks. Okay, are you there, Christina?
Yes, can you guys hear me? Yeah? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let me know when you guys want me. Yeah? I don't know if it's my AirPods or should I take, or can you guys hear me clear?
Okay, Christina, we can hear you. I understand we're not going to be able to see you, but we can hear you. So just keep talking, and I'll turn it over to you now. So, and quit coughing into the mic. Oh.
Okay. Um, Hihani Washe, Daya Wachi Yankapi, Daya Hippie. Really saddened that I'm unable to be there, but I'll do a quick introduction. So, Christina Johnston, Amachiapi, Wana, Mission South Dakota, Elwati, Sheila Baglaga Amataha, Nitingshi, Iam Nibuha, Nitingshi Tokakute, Wana to Gemna, Nitingshi Makovati Sita, Wana to Shaglopa, Nitingshi, Okichi Hiti and Naji, Wana to Wanashina, Nihigna, Tavis. Frederick Nash with Mukahoshila Chiapi. No, Lakoyo Onia, Wawachi Chama. No, Makbialu Iowa. Almost that we Chawakia, Wawashi Chama. Nami Chinchia. Dr. Comic Ash Chinchiki. So I just basically said that well, my name is Christina. I am the mother of 3 sons. I currently live on the Sichon Makwacha, which is the Mission, South Dakota right now. I used to live near Pine Ridge and worked at Red Cloud School, also worked for Thunder Valley Children's Immersion Program. And my oldest son is 10 years old. His name is Tokakute, which shoots the enemy. He goes to school at Makbialuta, Ohio, in Pine Ridge, along with Matthew, who is 8. I was first reached out to from Kim a while back. She had seen an interview that I had done in regards to the journey that I've made committing and devoting my life to learning Lakota. So I am from the land of the Shina-Glekweka, which is the Diné people. I am part Diné and Ojibwe from Pine Falls, Manitoba area. My family, all of my ate family is from Canada, the Anishinaabe people. I came to Lakota country about 15 years ago. When having my first son, I was a few months pregnant and knew that I wanted my children that I carried to speak Lakota fluently. It was extremely important to me that they carried the language into the future. And so that was when I first set this prayer into motion. It was very, very, to me, it was the most important thing. My mother passed away when I was 22, and my grandmother, her mother, was already gone. And so my Diné family was very small, very, very small at that time. And so I knew, and my son's family was big, and I knew that I was going to have my children be born and raised amongst their Oglala Tiochwe. And so I chose to raise them in that way because of no longer having my mother. When I first had my son, I put him into the very first children's Lakota immersion program that was started by Matt Rayla and Peter Hill in the Porcupine, South Dakota area. And my son was 2.5 years old. And he was coming home speaking Lakota, and nobody understood what he was saying. You could tell that there was a frustration in his voice. And I was frustrated at that time because I wanted his dad to teach him because he was the one that was Lakota. And so I thought that that was his job to teach him. So I was praying and trying to encourage and trying to make that happen, but it wasn't really happening. So I went to my mother-in-law at the time. She's now my 20. She's now Chewy, and I shared this with her, and she at that time told me that the mother is the first teacher, and that if I really wanted my children to learn Lakota, that I would learn and I would teach them. And I had said at that time, well, I'm not Lakota. And she said, well, you have Lakota sons, you have Lakota children. And if you want them to learn the language, then you will learn and you will teach them. And so I, at that time, felt like I was almost betraying my mother because she was Dene. But my mother was the kind of mother that sacrificed everything for her family and for her children. And so I always have emulated the type of teaching she had. I've always wanted to be just like her. So I prayed about it some more. And I sought advice from my Shepon, who I now call my Chua, Randy Boucher. And I asked her, her husband is a very proficient speaker. And I asked her, I said, how did he become such a good speaker? And she said, he prays about it. He prays about it all the time. And he sacrificed and prays. And in this way, this is how he's learned the language. So she said, always pray about it. And to this day, anytime that I go to her for anything, she always reminds me to pray. She said, make your tithes and go up on the hill and pray and talk to your mom. So I continued to do that, to continue to pray. At the time, I worked at Red Cloud School in a business office. I had a job that paid the bills. It was a good job. I did what I had to do. And I was on this journey of trying to find a way to learn Lakota, teach my children, encourage my sons. By that time, I had two sons. My second son was born, Matolo Chishicha. And my oldest was still in the immersion program and thriving. And my second son, at the time, I was the only one providing for my family. And so I had to go back to work when my son was 7 days old, my second son. And it was extremely stressful. And so one day I just snapped, and I had this moment where I made the decision that I was going to do anything and everything necessary and sacrifice anything that I had to make sure that I learned so that my children learned. So I resigned from my job, like on a whim, and I reached out to the Thunder Valley Lakota Language Initiative director, who at the time was Matt Rima, and I told him that I need a job. I need to learn Lakota. I will be the janitor. I will do the dishes. And he kind of laughed. At that time, I was taking the parent classes, and my very first teachers that started teaching me Lakota, so the immersion daycare, encouraged their parents to attend these classes. And so I started. My very first teachers were Dusty Nelson and Gracie Diego, and who at the time are Gracie's my Toja. And so and also Tama Iatala. Those three were my very first teachers. And Tama had shared with them that she learns very quickly and it comes very natural. And so they're asking me, like, what do you do? How does it help you? Or how are you learning so quickly? And at that time I didn't know how to answer that. I really didn't. But so when I had reached out and told Matt I was going to resign from my job, and I wanted to be with my children because they were at the immersion daycare. He hired me, gave me a chance. And so I took on the position as the second language learner coordinator at Thunder Valley Lakota Language Initiative, and buried myself in the work and studied and learned as quickly and as fast as I could, and loved that I was with my sons every single day. And from that point till about 8 months ago, I was with my sons for about 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We went to work together, we went home together. It was also around the time that I had separated. I had become a single mother at that point, and it was me and my 2 boys, and we shared that journey together, and we started speaking the language. My oldest son now is still at Red Cloud School, and he is a part of the very first immersion program that started with Thunder Valley, and they had a partnership with Red Cloud School, and so their classroom went from the immersion daycare into the school, and he's now about to go into 5th grade. And at the time, it was very experimental because they weren't really sure what was going to happen. And we basically took a big leap of faith in the program and the teachers, and in Matt Rima's style of teaching and educating. He had many, many years of educational experience, but had never taught in the language. And so I can confidently say it was the best decision that I had ever made. My oldest son is now 10 years old, and he's in the 5th grade. He's been in an immersion program since he was 2 years old. He speaks the language, and he understands the language. He lives a very prayerful life. His teacher right now is, I'm very fortunate, is his Tony, Randy Boucher, who is an amazing teacher. Before that, Matt Reno was his teacher from 2 years old to 3rd grade. And then Randy took over this past year and is doing an amazing job. But my son is one of the leading, and this is just not necessarily important, and I know that assessments are not important, but my son tests is one of the highest in his national assessments, and this is what dual language learning, him learning his language and learning and speaking Dakota and being in that program. And so my second son, Matul, is in 2nd grade in the same program. And so I am very, very honored to be the mother of my oldest son, or all my sons. I have a 1-year-old. His name is Okichize Ohiti Burbank. He was born a year ago, May 22nd, and he is from BC Changu Makoche. And his father is from there. And I had devoted so many years to raising my children amongst where their father lives. And I wanted to give my son, my youngest son, the opportunity. So me and my older boys, we talked about it and asked, we discussed it and decided, we wanted to make this transition so that the youngest could be raised and grow up amongst his people. Michinshi Yokichizu is from the Tunimpa Sapa Tioshbai. His great-grandparents are Rosita Eagle Bear and Russell Eagle Bear. His grandparents, Michinaka, are Vicky Eagle Bear and Mike Burbank, and his father is Travis Burbank. And they are a beautiful Tioshbai, very strong family, very beautiful family, and very thankful that my son comes from such good people. And so I've been working for the past 9 years strictly with Lakota language revitalization work, reclamation work, and sharing my journey and how I've learned, and helping anyone that asks how me and my sons have been able to do this together. And so for me, I'm very, very blessed that I do work that I'm extremely passionate about and have devoted my life to. And sometimes I get very uncomfortable speaking about it, only because There have been many times that I was asked why I do this work because I'm not Lakota, and I don't do this work because for any other reason, but for my sons and to help encourage other young people. Because for me, I have reached a deep understanding of how sacred the Lakota language is and the connection that it has to my children's ancestors. I know that my sons will need to I know that my sons sorry, Kim just now let me know that my voice was a bit distorted, so hopefully you guys caught every other word and filled in the blanks. Just kidding. But right now, so the way that I learned was from obviously from teachers that were learning right along with me. Like I had mentioned, my very first teachers were Dusty Nelson, Gracie Gallego, and Tama Iatala, and they had began their language journeys, years before starting to teach me, and it provided me a foundation, and the methods that were being taught at that time, for lack of a better word, I guess, the second language learner way, provided me a foundation to be able to learn. However, it was missing something, because when I would speak to fluent speakers or hear them speaking, I could not understand anything that they were saying. And so I would go back and study some more and learn some more and then try again. And then I would understand a little bit more and, gain a little bit of confidence. And my former boss we would kind of tease, and we'd say, how many times have you wrote down some sentences and you have some questions and you kind of play out in your head how this conversation is going to go with a fluent speaker. And then you ask a question, they say something back super fast, and you're like, oh my God, I did not catch any of that. And then you're just completely defeated and go back, and the conversation doesn't go any way that you want. It took me, that was about a 3-4 year journey for me. And many times where I felt like giving up, or not necessarily giving up, but felt like I wasn't getting anywhere, even though to my sons, I was speaking a lot of Lakota around them. I had gotten to the point where I could speak only Lakota around them. However, I wasn't able to fully conversate with fluent speakers at that time. And so now I have reached a new understanding that it's extremely important to establish a teaching and learning environment where fluent speakers are, the main teacher, and sharing with them how sometimes it's hard. I know that our fluent speakers, our elders, they want us to learn. They want us to speak the language. They always tell us to speak the language and to learn. However, there's this disconnect that's happening because our fluent speakers don't necessarily know how to teach us, because because they grew up as babies hearing the language. It's all they know. And so they can't necessarily go back to say, this is what my Ina did, or this is what my Ate did. This is how they taught me. So this is how I'm going to teach. And it's just been this ongoing process of our fluent speakers struggling to teach us and desperately wanting to share their knowledge. And so now, helping our fluent speakers understand us in order to teach us has been where I've been focusing my work. And through that, I've seen a huge progression, even in my own language learning and learners that I've been around. And so as I had mentioned before, this work is extremely important to me because our indigenous languages are everyone says sacred, but maybe they don't remember why, or not everyone understands why. But the way that I envision it is that I fear for my great grandchildren, and wondering how they will be able to pray for their children and how they will be able to ask for help, ancestral help. and that can only be done in the language. That communication and that happens with the spirit world and with their ancestors can only happen when speaking the language. And so when they say that the culture and the language go hand in hand, that's exactly what it means. And so for me, as a young person, so I still like to consider myself young. Some people are like, no, you're getting old. But as a young person, and I usually sit in local language meetings here and there, and some of them are real positive and really focused on the language. I've sat in a few meetings with the Sicango Treaty Council, and that's where their focus is. Their focus is the language. And my former Tunkashi, he's devoted his life to the language, and however, there's a lot of people that are either working in this work or not, that are fighting about the language. And for me, when anyone asks me, I say, don't get involved, don't fight about the language, because we don't have the luxury to. I know that a program out of Rosebud called The Protector of the Sacred, and Sunrise Black Bull is one of the main leaders in that. They did a survey on the Rosebud Sioux tribe and went door to door to count every single fluent speaker. And I believe at the time when it was done, there was about 550 fluent speakers, and that was pre-COVID. And they're getting ready to do another survey, and they're estimating it's going to be around 300 to 380 fluent speakers remaining, and it could be less. And the average fluent speaker is 65 years old. The average mortality rate for Indigenous people is 50. So we're not even expected to live as old as our fluent speakers are. And so there is no luxury to fight about the language and how the language is being taught, or fighting about orthography. We're not in a position to fight about it. So for me, I'm like, let's teach the language together and produce more fluent speakers, so we can do what the Hawaiians did when they had only 500 fluent speakers, and now they're at 18,000 speakers or more. And we can do the same thing here, and then fight about whatever you want, whatever orthography, when there's 19, 20,000 fluent Lakota speakers, and it can be done in the language. And so anyone that I work with, that's always where my stance is. And I always remind them, like, look at the children that are learning Lakota. There are several children immersion programs throughout the Osheti Shakoi. And I'm not aware of all of them, just the ones that I've worked with or have seen or been able to work with. Like right now, Makabialuto Waiawa has an immersion program. Thunder Valley nonprofit, they have a Lakota immersion, and they've recently started a Montessori extension to that. And then in Rosebud, there's a Wakaija Togechiachi immersion school that's run by Sage Fast Dog. And when you walk into these classrooms, when you walk into these spaces and you hear these young children speaking the language and watching them treat each other like relatives, that should be a reminder of how we should all treat one another and encourage one another, because there's really nothing else that's more important than learning the language and being good relatives and making that a priority, because our children are teaching us how to be relatives again.
our children are showing us how to be good to one another. Our children are showing us how important it is to learn the songs and to sing and to speak, and they want us to speak. When you speak to them, it gets them excited, makes them happy. And so, and I have to talk really slow, otherwise I literally start bawling anytime I talk about any of this, because I was very fortunate that when I said I was going to sacrifice anything in order for my sons to learn Lakota, even my own financial stability at that time, by just up and quitting my job and crossing my fingers that I would continue to survive, because we live in a world where we have to still survive and we have to still provide for our families. And, for me, I've been, the main provider, and that's very common in Indian country for women to be in positions of having to provide for their children. And for the first 8 years that my sons were alive, my older sons, I provided by myself, until now. And so, but that's kind of my story. I was really thankful when Kim asked me to speak, because if I'm able to encourage any young person to learn, I will definitely do that. And I feel as though every young parent, even if you're not a parent and all of us are aunties or uncles, we're all Tuli, we're all Lekshi. Learning the languages needs to be the most important thing. And I've been very fortunate to work in organizations where that is the priority, that's the foundation. And so I'm really thankful for your time today, and really honored to be able to speak. And I'm sorry if I have offended anyone. It's never my intention, but I always tend to do it sometimes. And I'm always like, I'm sorry, I can't please everybody. But I'm really thankful that this conference is happening, because this tells me that the language is a priority, not only in the States, but also in Canada. And so I'm very thankful that this conference was organized. And I know that Verna and Kim put a lot of work and a lot of thought into creating this. And I'm sure there was countless others that I do not know. And look forward to this conference continuing on into the future, along with the language, and hopefully I'll be able to help better. I was really looking forward to meeting some people in the community to I always try to visit as many elders as possible, because our elders have so many unique stories. And a word of encouragement that I'd like to give other language teachers, language programs that I was shared with. I've worked with many fluent speakers, and one time I worked with a real, she was wild. She really liked to talk wild, I'll just say that. And so I went back to my Untishi. I said, what do I do? Because I was her boss at the time, about maybe 9 years ago. I said, Untishi, what do I do? I said, this fluent speaker does not want to necessarily do her job, and she kind of talks like inappropriately around the setting, and I don't know how to approach it. And I said, should I find another fluent speaker and let her go? And she said, no. She said, you treat her like a treasure. You treat all fluent speakers like a treasure, because that's what they are, even if they don't know it. You never disrespect them. Our fluent speakers have survived so much. All of them have survived the boarding school era. And so they carry trauma that we're all unaware of. And so anyone that speaks the language, she said, embrace them and respect them and cherish them and treat them like a treasure. So our fluent speakers are the only connection that we have real connection that we have to the language. And I like to encourage our, our second language learners that have been learning. I'm really proud of each of you for taking the necessary steps and commitments to learning the language. But always remember, no matter how much you learn and how you have progressed in the language, it's important for us, and I'm speaking for myself as well, to remain humble and to remember that we do not know everything. We don't know anything, actually. And our fluent speakers don't know everything, but they know more than us. And when we hit a wall, or when we're having a moment, or we're struggling, we have to go back to our fluent speakers. We have to show them that respect. So give them some tobacco and sit down with them and bring them some coffee and speak to them. Ask them to share a story with you in Lakota and remind them of how important their role is and how important they need to be at the forefront of this movement and learning and teaching Lakota. And it needs to happen together. And I feel as though the more young teachers, I work with a few, I work, Amanda Carlo and Alex Fire Thunder. I could name countless teachers that have devoted their lives in the way that I have to learning the language for their children, and work well with fluent speakers to continue to do that, continue to develop those relationships. Because I used to once think that I used to be okay with situations where fluent speakers played a minimal role in learning Lakota, that if I was learning, it was okay. But now that, I'm getting older, I see and view things in a way that our fluent speakers need to guide us in every step of the way. Like right now, guiding, one of the main people guiding me is Lecturer Henry Quickbear from the Rosebud tribe. He is a fluent speaker and spiritual leader there and tribal member, and he guides the Lokoyo Onea program every step of the way with the language and with encouragement and support, and it's beautiful to sit there and to see that to happen every single day, and that's what needs to happen. These language programs cannot exist without prayer. They cannot exist without the culture, and they cannot exist without the fluent speakers. We have to put our fluent speakers at the forefront of every decision that we make and respect them. We can't, a lot of times I see young people arguing with our fluent speakers, even on Facebook. And I don't understand it, but that doesn't need to happen. Even if we disagree with something that is being said, listen to them anyway, and have that respect for not only the trauma that they endured from the boarding school, but that the fact that they carry this treasure that we are desperately trying to save, and understanding, always coming back and remembering why we are doing what we're doing, why we are doing the work that we're doing, and why we need to do it with intention, and why we need to do it with prayer. And so, like I said, I don't know anything. I don't claim to. I definitely don't claim to know everything. And I have many, many, many years of learning. I probably will never say that I'm a fluent speaker, regardless of how proficient I get in the language. I'm very thankful to be at a point in my life that I can share the language with my children, share the language with my peers that are learning, and be able to share the language in conversation with fluent speakers. And I'm very honored and thankful to always be able to do that. So I hope you all have a good day. I know this is the last day of the conference. I don't know how long I'm supposed to speak or what else I could share, but I'm very, very thankful that this is happening. It really warms my heart because it gives me hope for my grandchildren, my future great-great-grandchildren, that there are many people throughout, Canada and the United States that are fighting for this language, because we need to think that far ahead, because that's what our ancestors did. Our ancestors fought for us to be here, and they fought for the language to continue. And I went to a conference I used to teach in the high school at Red Cloud School, and I used to tell them that I can say this. I was like, maybe I can't say this, but I can say this unbiasedly because I'm not Lakota. And maybe my dinner relatives might get upset with me for saying this, but I used to tell my students, you be proud to be Lakota, because I just went to a conference where tribes cried because all their fluent speakers are gone, their culture is gone, their songs are gone, and they don't know what to do. How do they exist? How do they go forward? And we all know that there are over 200 indigenous languages that are gone and dying every day. And the Lakota people come from ancestors that fought and died for the language. And I said, right now, you still have your language. You still have your songs. You still have your ceremonies. And that right there is a reflection of what you come from, because they fought that hard for it to still be here. And it's strong and it's still prevalent and it can survive. And it can survive because of how strong they are. So I said, I can unbiasedly say that I truly believe that, Lakota people are probably, Lakota, Dakota, Nakota people are probably, the strongest of indigenous tribes that fought to the very end and continue to fight for everything. And I said, so be proud of who you are. Be proud of where you come from, and honor them by learning your language. Honor them by learning your songs. Honor them by living your life in a good way and respecting your relatives and treating each other like relatives. I've been a guest in Oglala Makoche, and I've been a guest in the Sichangu Makoche, and I have been treated really well, and I have been really mistreated at times. But I'm very, very thankful for the relatives that I have that have welcomed me into their homes, into their families, that have forgiven me for the mistakes that I've made and that have allowed me to grow, that have helped me grieve losing my mother. And, those that have prayed with me, welcomed me into the Inipi to, wipe me down when I was at my lowest. And so the Dakota, Nakota people are very, very beautiful people. I'm very honored to be the mother of 3 Lakota sons. Very honored to be a part of a beautiful family. I'm very honored and thankful to have what I have and to live. I hope I'm able to grow to be old and live with my family, my children, and my husband, and grow to be an old woman where they all speak the language and my grandchildren are speaking Lakota, and I will die happy. So that's all I have to say today before I start crying, because I'm a crier. I'm glad I'm not there because you guys feel like, oh my God, she's crying again. But so Ampetuasha Yuhape. I really wish every single one of you well. I will keep all of you in my prayers. And I think Kim has my contact information if anyone would like to reach out for questions or anything like that. I'd be glad to do that. And thank you. Doksha.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much, Christina. Daya Chanu, Chante Washte Yuha. Che. Hey, don't be crying around. But again, I believe Kim does have her information, all that good stuff. And that was really a good presentation. Thank you for that emotional, personal approach to addressing some of the issues of concern in Indian country as it relates to Dakota, Lakota, and Akona people. Hatchatuela, good job. All right, good to hear from you. And if anybody has any questions, just get in contact with Kim and she'll hook you up. You guys can visit and all that good stuff. Our next speaker, that Elder Dwayne Hollowhorn Bear, Elder. He must be a member of Mormon Church. Hey. I'm sorry, but that just irks me when I hear somebody refer to themselves as elder, because we're kind of like knowledge keepers or something like that. That's kind of like that. But Anyway, he's going to come on at 10:45, and so what we're going to do is make sure that you go back. There's door prizes for everybody. Make sure you go back to registration and you sign up for that, and then they'll pick your name out of the hat. You get a dandy door prize, whatever that is. I think one of them's $5,000. Yeah, I'm just teasing. Kim was there looking at me. What? No, no. Oh, I don't know what it is, but they're gonna have some dandy door prizes, and then uh, what else? And then there's a survey that you signed up, and then they'll get a hold of you. They'll let you know what's going on, and they like for your response because again, they want to really put on a better gathering like this again next year. It's going to be a continued thing. You know, I was talking to my sister back there earlier, and every Dakota tribe should put these on. They sponsor them, like they got sponsorship here from McKercher and SIIT. It's OADPT Architecture and Design, BLC Engineer, Saskatell, Enbridge, Bear sponsor, Saskatoon Tribal Council, and Mosaic, going out and soliciting stuff for our people so we can get together. You know, I don't know if it's good to be ethnocentric, but I don't mind it because again, we get in a common mindset. We understand the importance, like what Christina was saying. We need to kind of come together again. We need to do this often and not just talk about it, but do it. And there's some tribes that have the people that can go out there and really hustle and put good things together, like the Whitecap people here have, you know, and the host chief here was really good coming here and helping us out, bringing in the Eagle staff and all that good stuff, but showing us that we're all just Witashabi, you know, just common people that sometimes really need to get together, especially as it relates to some of the language, but also more than that, the cultural value system that's in place, the understanding of how important it is to think like a Dakota or Lakota or Nakona and do those things. But again, that's just what I was thinking, because these are so cool, sitting around, they speak their own language, and you laugh at your own jokes and all that good stuff, and we kind of all get together in a good way, and omnichia, yeah, kind of visit and do all that good stuff that we do, gossip, but I don't gossip. As if I was over there gossiping with Donnie Spidell across the road last night. Holy cray, you Indians are crazy. I didn't know you do all that stuff, but no. But I was over there visiting my cousin, my nephew Donnie, and oh man, it was good to see him because I haven't been up here for 2.5 years. So, but I think it's important that we should try to, every tribe, get together and come together. You guys remember they tried to kick the Dakota and Lakota out of Canada at one time? Do you guys remember that? Yeah. They tried to put legislature and say that, and it wasn't just picking on Indians, it was picking on Dakota, Lakota, and Nakona. They say they weren't from here because the white guys did the research, eh? But once the Indians did the research and they found out our hunting ground was way over there by the Yellowknife, and we claimed this, we claimed that. We even had an agreement with the Queen. Remember, my good friend, my brother Frankie Brown, tried to help us understand the importance of our relationship is not with the Parliament, it's with the Queen. But nobody understood what he was talking about. And so under that auspice of sovereignty, that's what he was trying to relate. And he utilized the cigarette sales to try to represent that. And they took him to court for that, and they won, because they're all non-Indians. They didn't understand what he was really saying based on principle. And that's that political agenda that he was trying to share with us. But you know, in that opportunity, what Christina was talking about, our way of life is done and it's shared in such a gracious manner that we need to really acknowledge that. That's what I'm speaking about, the principle of coming together like this, because we get together and we just enjoy stuff. I had one of my uncles, Shep Ferguson, he lived down there and he was in the service for 20 some years, but he spoke fluently, eh? He'd come to my house and we'd visit, but when I'd see him in public, I'd try to talk to him in Akolia and he wouldn't speak. And he'd always talk to me in English, or he wouldn't acknowledge me. So one time he's at my house and I said, Uncle, I said, how come you don't talk Indian when we're in public? He said, I don't want to embarrass the non-Indian people. Sure. As if, he said, no, really, they think we're talking about them when we speak our own language. He said, so I don't want to embarrass them, which was true. But you see how inhibited we become. That's why when we get together like this, oh man, it's really cool because we can laugh and joke and tease, and the people will know that we're not talking about them, even though we are. Hey, no, I'm teasing. No, we're not. But in that whole process, this is what these sorts of things mean. And this young lady here, we're just kind of getting emotional about that. And again, that's what we need to do. Like what Kevin was talking about yesterday, kind of affording us an opportunity. Yes, we can do this, but why aren't we? We sure talk about it lots, but so we just need to be intuitive in our manner, understand the importance of critical thinking, and just going forward and just doing it, just to gather, just to eat soup together, eh? Oh man, that'd be dandy. And enjoying some of these value systems that we talk about as it relates to protocol, understanding we're not religious people, but we're spiritual people. And there's no difference there. That's their way, that's their doctrine. You know, the difference in their doctrine, they don't understand it, is it says that they have dominion over animals, eh? And we totally don't believe like that. We believe, you know, we're all common people and we're all the same. And so we don't have that. We include them in that changleshka, that circle of life. And see, that's hard for them to accept that because they want to be controlling something or whatever under the auspice of the discovery, the doctrine of discovery. Oh man. But anyway, for me not to rattle on and on and on, we're going to listen to the elder Hollowhorn Bear, but he's not going to come on until 10:45. So we're going to let you guys go on a break. You can go to the casino till 10:40, but make sure you come back here. And then sign up for the door prizes that they have there. So that's going to be good. And then we'll finish up right after Elder Hollowhorn Bear gets done, and we'll take care of all that business. But they are going to feed us at noon as well. So again, remember that they've been very gracious and hosting us very well, taking care of us, providing coffee, breakfast, lunch. Oh man, I never ate so much in all my life. But it's a good gathering. And see, this is everybody just kind of relaxed and taking it easy, no stress. My older brother had to leave and head out, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of enjoyment to see one another again like this. So, hey, but we're going to let you go right now. It's 10:19, so you have a about 20-minute break that you can go out and continue to visit and whatnot and talk about these things and understand the importance of having all a common mindset and coming together in such a good way. Echituelo ho wopila chichiapelo midaki epi daya ichano chante washte you happy. Hey boy, I like that kind of enjoy gathering like this and understanding the importance of realizing your relations. So hookah, hey doksha, okay, we'll see you at 10:40. Hookah. All right. I hope everybody signed up for that. Put their name down for those uh, door prizes they're having. Um, I don't know, Kim. Maybe you might want to go to each table and send your buddy around over there and see if they signed up, see if they registered, because got some dandy door prizes. Like everybody to have a chance at getting a little something that they can go home with. Remember us by. Yay. All right, we're going to ask everybody to come on back in. Timahed hiopo mitakiapi, yotaklechia, okia chanitakia hukahe, agnagopta. All right, so come on in, my relatives, if you would. We're just about ready to go. And again, we have Elder Dwayne Hollowhorn Bear that we're going to be listening to. So if anybody's outside, tell them to come back in. But I'll share a little bit of information about Mr. Dwayne Hollowhorn Bear here. It says here, Elder Dwayne Hollowhorn Bear, a Sinchago Lakota, was born and raised on the Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Dakota. Dwayne was a faculty member of Sinte Gleshka University, a 4-year private American Indian tribal college in Mission, South Dakota, where he taught for 25 years in the field of history and culture and language. He is a spiritual leader, currently the director of the Lakota Studies Department at St. Francis Indian School for the past 5 years. He comes from a strong heritage of leadership from his great-grandfather, Chief Hollowhorn Bear, who lived from 1850 to 1913, known to have inherited his grandfather's skill as an orator. Dwayne travels extensively around the country and abroad, lecturing and speaking on the history of Oceti Sakowin people of the Seven Council Fires, and continues to advocate for the Lakota way of life. The title of his session today is titled Thought and Philosophy on Lakota Language and Our Sacred Connection to All on the Unchi Maka, Mother Earth. His presentations will uncover these meaningful philosophical concepts that are found in our traditional systems of Oceti Sakowin knowledge. All right, so in that whole process, we'd like to introduce to you at this time, if he's there, Elder Dwayne Hollowhorn Bear. Koda, are you there?
I am here. Good morning.
Oh, that's it too. Okay, you have the floor, sir.
Aho. Hami takwepi. Lakolia matro hechlagecha imachapala. He tukashla sam tukashla ehani he chajet kha. Ashwanal. Chajeki hemo ashmitra chajeki trankawakua imachapala. Good morning. Good morning, relatives. Hollowhorn Bear, as I so frequently always want to emphasize, that was my great-grandfather's name, and that was his name and his name alone. It wasn't until the formation of our remnants of our homeland here, but is now the state of South Dakota and the Rosebud Indian Reservation, kind of a derogatory name that I have to describe where I live when we know I'm just a common man on Uchimaka. But I go by my great-grandfather's name. This was something that was done back in his time period when they wanted to give our great-grandfathers English names to know them by, but men like my great-grandfather stepped forward and said, no, I have a name. My name is the bear with the hollow horn. He says, you have a translator here. He can translate what that is. So the translators that they used told him his name is Hollowhorn Bear. So now I'm the 4th generation down the line from my great-grandfather, striving to honorably carry his name. But with our cultural traditions and our customs, my grandfathers had given me the name Tankawakua. So it's a name that I use when addressing myself as to who I am. Tankawakua is I pursue the big one. I'll chase after the big one. So I strive to try to live up to that name. And I'm going to be 73 years this year on Uchimaka. And I left the universities back in 2016, thinking I could use that Washichu word retirement. But I was reminded that in Lakota language, there is no word for retirement. Elders, you must continue to teach. You may rest when Uchimaka takes you and covers you with her blanket. Then you can rest when your spirit returns home to the spirit world. So it's a little philosophy on why we as elders, we cannot stop. There is, even to our last breath, we have a teaching moment to share what our lives, our culture, our traditions, our language, our history. So I come from this background of education of the 25 years I spent at Sintegalishka University. And as you had mentioned, in history and culture and the language. I've learned the linguistics, the philosophy of the language has always intrigued me as to what did Grandma mean? What did Grandpa mean when he said this word? What was our philosophy? Not the Christian, the Catholic Church interpretation or the English language that so many people use to describe our language, define our language in English terms. But what was the philosophy? You know, I have an uncle who I learned a lot from, and one of the things he talks about is how very important language and how vital it is to our culture. Language is our bloodline, and our history has demonstrated that how we handle our language, how we develop it, can cause our people to the Ocheti Shakoi to grow in it, or it can destroy us. We talked about 200 years ago, where the language had built us up to where we were very progressive and a strong people. But within those last 200 years, the misuse of the language, it almost destroyed us. So I think gatherings like this, and I'm so honored to be a part of this one again, that we understand that it's time. It's time that the language returns, and it comes back as a vehicle of empowerment, that we use it to empower ourselves and understand how beautiful our language is and how meaningful it is when you understand and you teach about the philosophy of the language. So the early reservation days, you know, when non-Indians were placed in our homelands to take charge of our education, this process was known as acculturation, assimilation, eradication of our Indianness. But despite the damage that was done, there are tools and skills that Western education can provide. Achieving desired results required a careful balancing between those skills and a strong Lakota value system. I think our grandfather says we need to understand how these people think, how they speak, how they use their words. And so to get a better understanding how they speak and how they think, you know, we can learn their language in that way. But we cannot let go of our own true meanings of what our language tells us. So today, what I do today, I taught at the university, as I mentioned, for 25 years. But during those 25 years, I found that many of the students at the college level, as a core requirement, the language was to achieve their to get their degrees, it was a core requirement, the history and the culture and the language. But so many of the students, even our own native students, were taking the language course only to get the credit because they needed that degree so they could get out there into the workforce to earn a living so that they could support themselves, their family, their way of life. And so they just wanted the credit. And so year after year, as much as I tried to influence the students into how vital the language needs to come back. And as it is now, at my age and going on 73, the reality is that in 20 years, many of us fluent speakers are going to be gone. And if we don't pursue these steps right now to reviving the language, then the language is going to be gone. That's just a simple truth. It's going to be gone. And then who are we going to be? I talk about today living in America, we might as well just consider ourselves brown Americans. And people don't like that sound. You know, there's the white Americans, there's the black Americans. Now we'll have a culture of just brown Americans when we don't have a language. And so the philosophy must be brought along with the language. So the work I do today here at the St. Francis Tribal School, this was historically a boarding school. And sadly, I attended this boarding school here, and it's kind of ironic that I've made the full circle and I come back to this place where I was educated in the 3 R's and in English. And now I'm back here. And I see the changes from 1970 to this 2022 in 52 years, how little of a change has really been made. But we have to understand too that cultures, large entities, large, empires, it takes about 300, maybe 400 years to make some really, really big, drastic changes in their culture. And this is only 52 years since the boarding school began to demissionarize and turn the school back over to a parent school board and put it back under tribal control. And so we were in charge of our own education from that point. We were in charge knowing that if we have to receive funding to operate these schools, then we have to follow, the money that they gave. They have stipulations of, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to meet all the criteria. And so I've come that far up to this last couple of years now, applying those criteria in this Lakota way of life, and it really was frustrating. And now I have managed to put together a small team of Lakota speakers. In 2019, I put in for a grant, and I said, what about immersion? Can we do immersion and just apete il ha wakanja ki tiopa hetima hubiki hetaha washichu wongla kapiktashni ikcha Lakota unyapikte. From this point on, when the child comes through that door, we're going to speak strictly Lakota and no English. Can we do this? And I received the grant. And so we've researched, we planned, we acquired, and fortunately for us, our school is now under the leadership of our own people. And it was one of our own alumni who is now the superintendent. And we have the support. So she says, what you're going to have here is a school within a school. You set your criteria on how this school is going to operate. So we've developed our own handbook. We've put together a learning vision. Let me go through some of these learning visions that we put into place. Wakanja, the children, they're going to be involved in the planning of their own learning experience. It's kind of like an autodidactic learning. Almost, I don't want to say it's Montessori. Montessori's structured to me in a way that it's almost like a classroom style, an English classroom style, the way that I view it anyway. And our learning vision also incorporates the parents. Parents as well, they will be involved, and as they progress, as they work through with their students, they will be responsible for their children's learning experience. So in a sense, the responsibility is going to go back to the parents and to the home of educating our children. Now, historically, this is where it was at. Granted, the elders were the educators in the extended family. They were the teachers. They were the babysitters. They fed the little ones while the father took care of what he needed to do. The mother had her things to do. Of course, they were there. And we realized that the elders that I'm utilizing today, and there is an abundance of elders that are still very fluent in the language. Let me take that back. They can speak the language, but the influence of Western thought, Western philosophy, sometimes it emerges through the Lakota language. And it's kind of sad when we point this out, because some of the speakers, they become a little upset and say, well, this is the way I've always taught. I said, I can understand you totally. I totally understand what you're saying, but sometimes the language and how you phrase the language is through a Washichu thought pattern. So how would we say it philosophically as a Lakota? So we go through these little trials and tribulations with elders, with parents, and as they began to understand, they began to open up and saying, you know, we don't think that way anymore. So it says, yeah, but we need to remember. And the word for the name of our school is Wexia. I remember. Wexia. I remember. Now I remember this. I remember that. So now the parents are coming forth and saying, and the elders are coming forth and they're saying, I remember what my grandmother used to talk about. I remember Grandpa saying this. I remember Uncle talked about this. We're beginning to start to remember, and these little children are going to benefit from those memories. And so the school is appropriately titled Wexia. And so the school is, it's kind of formatted in a way where I use one of our oral legends, one of our teachings on how the language was taught back to a cultural hero. So if you could see this sheet of paper, it says the Wexia Immersion School, a school within a school. This is our school logo. And what you're seeing in the picture is a meadowlark and a magpie. So when the elders began to tell us stories, they're saying, long time ago when the grandmothers were drying the meat on the branches or on the teepee poles, that they hung up to dry meat, the magpie would come by and they would speak the Lakota language, and they would be making little remarks at the women. And so these ladies were hollering at the magpies, you be quiet, don't be saying things like that. And you realize the magpie learned to speak Lakota, and so too the meadowlark. The meadowlark spoke the Lakota language. So we talked about how today we place so much high value on the philosophy of the Blue Star Woman, Wichachmitchowi, who wanted to come back to Earth from the star world, but in that Timsila braid that she braided that broke, and her falling to the earth and being killed in that fall, but the child that she was carrying was forced to be born. When the little animals came and said, where did this child come from? Where did it come from? The bird said it came from the sky. It fell out of the sky. That's its mother that died there. So we have to ensure that this little bird lives. I mean, this little boy lives. Magpie, you speak the Lakota language. Teach it to speak. Meadowlark, so too you. You speak the Lakota language. Teach it to speak in Lakota. And so they taught, the boy grew rather quickly, and they taught it to speak Lakota, and it became a cultural hero that went from village to village. In predicaments, it would assist the village on how to solve situations or little catastrophes that happen. Starboy, the hero. And so when the days of the buffalo were ended, when we could no longer hunt buffalo, the women's livelihood of tanning buffalo hides, elk hides, and deer hides for clothing, the buffalo hides that they tanned for teepees and for clothing, for whatever it was that they did. Now, the luxury of the buffalo hides was gone. We were forced on to this last remnant of our homeland to survive. And they couldn't get their hands on buffalo hides anymore. So the elder grandmothers began to talk and saying, we need to bring something back. And they started to tell stories about Blue Star Woman. And so they took the idea when the missionaries or the non-Indian people brought the materials, the traders, they brought the cloth. They began to take the cloth and they cut their diamonds and they made these quilts. They made these beautiful starburst quilts. And they took pride in those, just as they did in the work they created with the buffalo hides. And so to receive a star quilt today is quite an honor. And so today we utilize those two individuals who taught Starboy how to speak Lakota, the meadowlark and the magpie. And we put those into our logo. There's a little caption that they each talk about. They're saying, let's speak Lakota today. And the other says, yeah, let's do. I remember Lakota. And so this is our logo that I showed you that we're using in our program here, in our school. So the philosophy of where did the language come from? How did the loss of it almost happen through the loss of language through the boarding school system? And now that we are a tribal school for 52 years, and we've tried almost every method of creating curriculum, but then we realized that why don't we just try what they've shown and what they say? What really works is to immerse them into the language. I was hoping to bring one of our little third graders here to stand behind me and introduce herself to you in Lakota today, when she knew no Lakota language 4 months ago. but now we've come quite a ways in just 4 months. Our immersion school, we were on virtual teaching there for during this pandemic. And so we had no students. And we finally got the students back this past January. And so the teachers went into the classroom, and the work that they've done today is just amazing. And we're really proud of ourselves and how far we've come. They give us one large classroom in the elementary school. So the grant was designed for K3, but the superintendent said, can you do K8? I says, the grant isn't that much and I need more staff. She said, what about K5? So we tried K5, but the fifth graders at that age, they kind of longed to be with their friends. They wanted to be closer to their friends instead of just 3 or 4 of them in the class. So they chose to go back to general ed. So we have 14 students in our immersion school that we're including a lot of cultural activities. We take them on field trips. We're using the world as a classroom. We don't want to be stagnant just in the classroom of reading and writing. We're not even doing that much reading or that much writing. A lot of it is just immersing into the language. There will be some written and reading that they can understand. That's going to be limited. The focus is going to immerse them totally in the language. So that's where we're at today. The curriculum level of learning is going to be learner-centered. We have fourth graders that their thought patterns are a little bit different than the kindergarten. So we've got to be able to address the learning pattern of the kindergarten student as well as that of the other grades. So our curriculum is going to be focused with the Lakota philosophy, and the outcomes are going to be focused on the whole child. It will ensure that each child is prepared, not just academically, but socially, emotionally, mentally, physically, and above all, spiritually. Each and every day, we begin our classes with smudging and with the prayer, and sometimes even with the song. And the boys and the girls really want to sit at the drum, but we say, no, the drum was for the boys. There are instances where I've heard of some drum groups are allowing the females to sit at the drum. I remember there used to be a Canadian drum group that was called Young Grey Horse Society, and they were all female, I believe it was, back in the 80s, or was it before that? Somewhere in the 90s, the Young Grey Horse Society, beautiful songs that they sang. But anyway, our Wexria immersion classroom, the students find that the language needs to be respected. And it's got to be valued. We need to honor it. So when we acknowledge these young ones almost every day, acknowledging what they have learned, they need. Today, when I see one of the students, this child is going to come up to me already because we started giving them hugs, and they want a hug. All children need a hug, and being as grandfather, they refer to me as Kaka Dwayne and Kaka Rani, Unchi Vida. The teachers and our office manager here, she becomes an auntie in Lakota, so they refer to her as Tui. So the language is used right from the beginning, and we teach what those words mean and how you're honoring each other, how you're respecting each other and how you value each other when you use the relationship terms to each other. I always mention or saying two individuals can be in such a heated, really heated disagreement. But when one says to the other, yeah, but Kahanshi, you got to take a look at it this way. When you use that word Kahanshi, you've respected this person, even in argument. You've respected this individual to acknowledge them as a relative. And that brings that dialogue, that conversation, that disagreement to a level where, yes, you can disagree, but you're not going to walk away from there until, disrespecting each other. You use that form of respect by making everyone a relative. So this is something the children are understanding when they see someone, they want to know. Hetakuwaya. How do I, the girls will say, how do I address this one? How am I related to this one? So they're doing their family trees, and acknowledging who the parents are, their siblings, their cousins, all of these things are going to be implemented in the classroom. So we understand it's got to be a safe place. In a secure environment. It's got to be conducive to learning physically, psychologically, in an emotional, safe home, a home style atmosphere. So we don't have desks in that classroom. We've created like one large living room. There's little places where there's Lakota books that they can look at, and whatever they choose to want to learn something about, they pick up a book, we read it to them in Lakota. They pick up an item, we identify that. Whatever interest a child has, then we would teach them that in Lakota. So they're learning about everything in their surroundings. It's just not the straight ABCD thing or the 1, 2, 3. It envires their whole surrounding in life. So although we shared a personal vision of our tribal schools, their vision for excellence and innovation and a working climate, we want to make it an attractive choice for talented and Lakota speakers, those out there who really want to contribute something back to working with the children, bringing in speakers to do storytelling. And of course, we need to compensate them. So luckily, our grant allows us to do this, to bring in our elders and working with the community, going out and finding those teachers. We strive to hire and to empower and to retain those teachers because of their passion for educating Lakota-speaking children. So it's a challenge. I like using that word challenge, and I've asked students all the time not to use the word saying it's too hard or it's too difficult. No, delete those 2 words from your vocabulary. And when you see something, you look at it and study it and say, it's a challenge. Am I up for this challenge? They could go at it, but if they don't succeed immediately, we're going to step back and say, where was our weakness? Where was our weakness? What do I need to work on? And then go back at it again. So with those types of mentality, philosophically, they can advance, knowing that they can accomplish once they keep their mindset onto it, and not to discourage them. When the grading system is, this one got an A, you didn't get an A, you just got a C. That tends to demean a child. And so we're trying not to we're going to get away from that, and we're going to use elders to come in to assess the children. Fluent speakers that will sit down with these children and elicit the vocabulary, elicit what they've been learning, talking with the child in Lakota. And they in turn will tell us, to say, this one here is still got a little work to do in this area. This one here is advancing pretty good, and challenge them. And so it's we wish to we're going to strive for a positive and collaborative relationship between these elders. Of course, we still have, being a part of a school, we have to work with our administration, our school board, and the other teachers. And we're called upon quite a bit to share at school functions, being a tribal school. And, you know, surprisingly, what really helps us to encourages us is that we see other parents are asking if they could put their child into our school. Or we have students that come over to the classroom and they're peeking in and, can I join? Can I take this class? Sadly, they're enrolled in the general education. And I wish we could just turn this whole school into just a complete immersion school. But that can't be done just yet. But we're going to take step by step. We'll get these 14. We'll be moving up, moving some up to 5th grade, and then we'll incorporate the 5th graders in next year. Then we got to fill the slots for the kindergarten that are moving up. And then as time goes by, it's going to be a natural transition of the young as they come forth, as they're growing up. They're going to be, everything's going to be in Lakota. It's always, I think we all understand that a child's going to become how they're influenced. How are we going to influence these children? And that's our dream. That's our goal. That's our mission statement on how we're going to influence these children in Lakota, to think in Lakota, to act in Lakota. The teacher, I was over there this morning, I was talking with the teacher, and one little boy was doing something he shouldn't be doing. And so the teacher stopped and said, that's not Lakota, is it? The boy caught himself and said, no. I said, okay, you need to act like a Lakota. You know, always reminding themselves who they are, teaching the values, the morals and the modes and the manners of what our people lived by. We know that we can't go back and ride our painted ponies chasing the buffalo across the prairie here. Those days are gone. But we can pick up the morals and the values that our people live by, and we can instill them in today's environment, and how the child is going to surround themselves in home, in school, in their playground, the respect, the honor that they should have, to immerse these students, as well as the parents, in the Lakota language, with these morals and modes and manners. They're going to come back and ask to learn more. That's what's kind of happening now when they want to ask questions. How can I let Lakota toshke printao? Lakolia toshke eapihele. How do I say this in Lakota? You say, ask the question in Lakota. Ask me the question. If you're going to speak to me in English, I'm not going to respond to you. So they're catching on. And one of the great things is the older children, the 4th graders, they're helping the kindergarten students. That is a must. We know that, you know, when historically families were small. They were sometimes spaced 5 years apart. It's because the older ones also had a responsibility of helping the younger siblings when mommy wasn't there. And so now these fourth graders are helping those that are younger than them. And that's going to go on and on and on until they come back, and they're going to be, as they advance in school, they're going to just carry that type of philosophy with them. I got to help these little ones. I got to make sure the little ones are safe, that they're taken care of. And this way of life is going to come back. And I see it through this immersion. As we develop these testing tools to assure the students are advancing in their learning, the elders will see to it that what we're lacking, they need to know about this, they need to know about that. It's not in books, it's not in numbers and in written materials. It's some of the philosophy of the language. When we talk about, let me use one word for example. When we used to ask people, what does uchihishni mean? Some guy smiled and he says, that just means lazy. Oh, Manuela, can you get this from Terrell? My phone's ringing. I'll get my office manager to answer it quickly. Sorry about that. Unchihishni, this guy says, oh, that means you're lazy or someone's lazy. I said, okay, well, let's look at the philosophy of this language. Let's do some etymology work here. How many words did it take to make this word unchihishni? See, first of all, let's separate this word as we look at it. There's unchi. That's grandma. Okay, unchi. And he. He is here. Unchihishni. Grandma's not here. So when you're talking about this person, ata unchihishni, you're calling him lazy. So, well, you look at this philosophically, this guy had his grandmother helping him with everything in life. Grandma was always there, doing things for him, taking care of him, doing everything this boy needed. Food, clothing, whatever this young one needed, this man needed. But now his grandmother is not here. Uchihishni. The grandmother's not here, so the man kind of helpless. The philosophy of the language said, that's not a word I want to use upon myself. I've got to be responsible for things that I need to learn. One of the things that this morning I did a morning prayer, and I talked about how the children's minds, and the word, the children's mind, nasula, the mind, the brain, nashlujala would mean it's still soft. It's still soft yet. There's still a lot to be put in there. So it's our responsibility as teachers, as educators, to look at these children and say, they're in need. They're in need, and this is how I can influence them. And sadly, too many of our children are not getting this at home. So we need to, when we only do it for a 1-hour class per day in the language in schools, that's not enough. I think an immersion school where it's all day long, we're the grandparents. We're going to become those grandparents that these children are going to spend the entire day with. And that role is going to reflect on how we influence the minds of these little children, the language, the philosophy, the values, the morals, everything that we want this child to emulate as they grow, then that's our responsibility. So this is what we're going to be putting into these little minds that are nashnuzla, that are soft, that have a lot of space of them. We see how many of our teenage children and the college kids, all of the influence that how their influence is perhaps from that cell phone. And it's hard to talk to them because they got their earbuds in, or they got their headphones on, or they're listening to whatever music that is, if it's even music that they listen to these days. So we need to influence with our own music, with our own stories and the teachings. What's the moral of this story? What are the values that are in this story that this child needs to understand? You know, I believe you used Iktomi stories up there, up north, and those Iktomi stories that we use, they're just not stories to get the children and people to smile and to laugh or to scare each other. There's some morals and values to each of those Iktomi stories, and we need to teach those values right along with the story, even if it's today. A lot of people don't want to hear a story because they say, oh, it's derogatory. Well, that's because you've got the Washichu mind. You got Washichu thinking. If you were thinking as a Lakota, you would understand why you need to know this story, what the philosophy of this story is telling you, and how grandmothers long ago would say, we don't do that. We don't do those things. That's not our way. And so when you begin to hear that, and you realize there was a way of life of the Lakota people, and that needs to be brought back, right along with just not speaking the language and getting by. So there's other entities that are sharing or that are striving to, much like what we're doing here today, many speakers, many teachers, and wanting to find ways on how to teach these children about the language, language acquisition, restoration. We go to these and we're going to share, and we're going to take our children. There's a National Indian Education Association that comes up in the fall, and our superintendent had asked us to put in a proposal to go down to this. It's going to be in Oklahoma. So put in a proposal, and if you get accepted, take your immersion school down there and show to the other tribal nations what we are doing here, and be proud of what we're doing. And I think we're going to do that. And we're, with just these 4 months, how proud we are of these children and how far they've come just in 4 months is it's just awesome. And what we can accomplish, I believe that within 2 years, by the time this third grader becomes a fifth grader, going into middle school, it's going to be a very fluent Lakota speaker if they stay with our program, which we're encouraging the parent, keep them with us. Their grades that we give them are going to be applied into the school system here. That's going to allow them to move on to the 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, and on up. And we're going to be ready for them. We're going to continue to develop curriculum. The curriculum is already out there. It's life. The curriculum is life. Your surroundings, your feelings, your your mental capacity, your physical with the, I don't know, the horses, the birds. How my grandmother influenced me today was, you know, I used to tell, I'm telling my grandchildren today, saying, my grandma used to wake me up in the morning. "Chakosha kiktaye zit kalaki wanani chiluwapi." So she would say, grandson, get up now. The birds are singing for you. When you go out early in the mornings, today as a grandfather, I go out, I do my morning prayer, I sing my song to the morning star, and I could hear every bird early in the mornings. Every bird is singing out there. And what does that tell you? You know, that creation at that time, every bird is welcoming that new day. So we too, we need to be up early, greeting that day. The day is bringing gifts. When that sun comes over, it's bringing you the gifts of the day. And if you're just laying in bed under your blankets, you know, the sun's going to pass over. You're not going to get those gifts of the day. You need to be up early. So the influences that I received from my grandmother sure helped me in my line of work here today. So I've had a well-rounded life, I guess, working with, understand what my life was going to be like when my grandfather gave me this Lakota name, Takawakua. It's as the gentleman introduced me this morning, I've had that opportunity to travel abroad, been to countries like Belgium, and people are really anxious and they're willing to learn about native peoples. And they ask you, what's it like to be a native? And say something in your language. And if you can't say anything in your language, you've lost half of the battle of proving who you are. Yeah, you're there physically, but do you have your language? It's a criteria, I believe, to be recognized as a native, is to carry yourself with your native philosophy and knowing your history, your culture, and being willing to share that, being a good relative. I think that's why we say mitaki oasi. We are all related. Then, you know, it's easy to say mitaki oyas. It's easy to say. It's easy to put on your shirt, on your hat, or on your bumper sticker. The hard part is to live it, is to really live it, to really understand the concept of what that word philosophically means, mitaki oyas. I am related to everything in creation. Everything in creation is related to me. And you're never alone. Sometimes when there's sadness, you're lonely. You go for a walk, and you got to remember your closest relative is always right there with you, your Mother Earth. She is there constantly. Millions and millions and millions of years, Ochimaka has been giving us everything that we need to live, to get by. And she's not going to stop. But she's given warning signs that we're not living the way that we should. We've become too dangerous as the two-leggeds. And it's scary what this world could become. But as Native peoples and those who strive to want to keep their language alive, I commend you and want to encourage you to not give up, not give up. It's something my uncle always reminded me. She always says, we can never stop. Once we started this, we can never stop. And so I've come 32 years now in education, and I got another 32 years to go. I'm 73 now, and if I got another 73 in me, it's going to be in education. Yeah. So I think the emphasis on writing the language is good, but I think the language should also be taught with emotion. We have to make your students comfortable, make them comfortable, make that little relationship with them. If you're related to them, use that relative term, Tushka, Tuja, Takoja, Takoja. When they understand that you're calling them something special in life, they feel comfortable, and you can get them to articulate the Lakota or Dakota or Nakota vowel systems. The alphabet is a method of symbolically isolating sounds. While students, they gain confidence, we want our students to start thinking in Lakota. Think Lakota. The pronunciations is the key to that, because it can have so much meaning when you've got them. If you don't pronounce words properly, it changes the meaning of a word. And such as I had one relative was saying, I want to pray in Lakota language. If I want to pray to Mother Earth, how would I say that? You say Unchimaka, Unchimaka. And so I say, all right, I will say this, I'll say that, and say Unchimaka. No, don't say it like that. I said it right. No, you didn't. Say Unchimaka, Unchimaka. No, you're not saying it right. No, just forget it. Why? I want to learn this. Yeah, but you're calling my grandma a skunk. Because maka is a skunk, and makha with the guttural sound is earth. So proper pronunciation is always the key to enunciate these words as fluently as you can with those guttural sounds. And well, I think my time is kind of up now, and I want to thank you all again for letting me come again this year, and I'll be here for another 73 years, so feel free to call back anytime if you have questions. I can be open to questions now if need be. Is that allowable, Barn Dog?
Yes, it is there, Mr. Hollowhorn Bear. Are there any questions for Dwayne at this time? We talk so like, yes. There's a question, Mr. Hollowhorn Bear. Do you do summer camps for the children?
Yes, we are. We are right now. Today is our last day of actual school today. And next Monday or Sunday, we're leaving for Santa Fe. There's a Ely Indigenous Language Institute where there are some people who are doing some successful immersion programs. So I'm taking my staff down there to immerse them into teaching techniques in immersion classroom. What I have a little situation where my teacher might say, what is your name? In Lakota, that was the question that they turn around and say, and that means what I'm saying is, I say, don't translate. Do not translate in immersion. These kids are smart. let them figure you out. Use hand gestures, use facial emotions. Um, let the children, these kids are so smart, they're going to figure out this language. Look how far we came in just 4 months. But we have to have some sort of training session mandated by our school for between the 6th and the 10th. So if I could have, I could have came up there and this could have been a training session, but I do have my staff and we are immersion. So we're going to go to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to the Indigenous Language Institute for some immersion training. And then we're going to come back, and then the 13th through the end of July, we're going to have a summer session. The summer session is going to be what I was talking about here. It's going to be predominantly outdoors. In fact, we're going to travel to the Black Hills. We're going to go to Wyoming. We're going to go up to Montana, to the Little Bighorn battle site. And there's a few of the students that don't have their Lakota names. And so their parents are saying they would like to have their children be given Lakota names. We're going to assist them in that, and we'll take them all up, parents included. We'll take them all with us to the Little Bighorn in Montana. And on that site, we're going to do the ceremony and give these children Lakota names that they will strive to live by the rest of their lives. So that's something we're looking forward to with these children.
Oh, Hachituelo. Does that answer your question, or? Yes. Also, Mr. Hollowhorn Bear, do you also do ceremonies yourself?
No, I'm not a medicine man. They call me a spiritual leader because I worked with a medicine man he was my mentor for over 10 years, and I've learned quite a lot from him. And we do a Sundance. We do have a Sundance called the Hollowhorn Bear Sundance, but this was named after my great-grandfather, whose sacred pipe we were able to repatriate. And so we're using his sacred pipe to conduct this Sundance here on our homeland. We've come 34 years now after we've gotten his pipe back. And there's other items. 2 of his shirts are going to be home. There's another pipe that was at the Little Bighorn battle site, and those are all repatriated back to my family, and we use these to conduct our Sundance.
Oh, any other questions for Mr. Hollowhorn Bear here? I have one quick one there, sir.
Yeah.
They refer to you as elder. Are you affiliated with the Christian aspect of this walk too, or?
The what?
Are you? They refer to you here as Elder Dwayne Hollowhorn Bear. Are you associate? Do you apply a Christian perspective as well with these teachings, or you strictly just Lakota?
I'm Ikchewichasha. I guess the elder just means it would be from the term Wichachtala, a man of many years with wisdom and knowledge and experience. What the word really means philosophically, Wichachtala, that endearment is applied upon me using that term philosophically, such as Winuchtala, those terms, a woman who says many years of attaining wisdom, experience, and knowledge, someone who I have compassion for, I have knowledge of. So that's what those terms would apply to.
Yeah. And, you know, I just kind of wonder about that too sometimes, but in reference to blossoming, I guess, and somebody we hold dear to our hearts. But any other questions for Mr. Hollowhorn Bear? Anybody? He did a wonderful understanding of the method of teaching. They call that epistemology and pedagogy and all that good stuff. You got to finesse that, kind of like that, eh, Doc? and you understand the importance of applying it. You mentioned the fourth graders, how they take it on. That's the age in which they start comprehending like what they read and what they do and whatnot. So evidently he's very aware of this opportunity to really support our children. Also, he acknowledged the fact that, like the little ones, their role models are the fourth graders or the fifth graders, because their aspirations goes just that far. It's not Charles Barkley or Michael Jordan or anything like that. Their role models are just the next level up, and we need to acknowledge that as well. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Boy, you covered a lot of area there that is really beneficial to us. As we did this, Mr. Hollow and Bear, I was talking with my nephew back there. When we do things like this, during the breaks, we should, as it relates to immersion, during the breaks, we should have those fluent speakers come up and talk during the break time. Just Lakota, that's all. Not or Dakota, whatever the case may be, or Nakonia. And in that, just have them speak, because again, there's words that all of us don't use or may have forgotten or doesn't apply. Like when I was listening to Tom Snow yesterday, I didn't know what he was saying, man, because their dialect is totally different. You see what I'm saying? But if we get somebody during the breaks to just speak, not speak no English or not translate or anything, because the reason I say that is because it's been archived or recorded, and so that helps us to understand that diversity that is there. What do you think about that, Mr. Hollow and Bear?
If you have an elder speak, maybe have him share a story and tell you the morals of why he used that story. I think the appreciation of that is going to grow, because you just not only learn the story, but a true, real philosophical meaning to a way of life.
How, and you see, so we can really enhance our opportunity of coming together, because at the breaks I hear the ladies laughing and enjoying themselves and stuff like that. That's what's key, and we need to really understand the importance of again, listening to the language being spoken and actually applied to our everyday life and whatnot, instead of just speaking English, because I feel a lot of the words in our language is a contamination. Like we never used to say ampetu kile. We never used to say that. We just say ampetu, and all these good stuff like that. We never used to say hihana washte. We just say ampetu washte. And stuff like that. But when we hear the actual language itself, then we can understand the importance of maybe going back to the original intent of those words. Like I never heard the unchi heshni. Yeah, that was cool. I like that story. I really appreciate it. I never heard that before. He's lazy. Next. But any other questions for Mr. Hollowhorn Bear? Anybody? Okay, with that, sir, again we say wopila tanka, wopile chicha, pelo dai chano, chante washte yuha, huka, ampetu washte yuha.
Dokshake.
Ho, dokshake. Big round of applause, you betcha. Boy, good job. And again, we can't say enough about, gatherings such as this and the enjoyment of one another's company. And the stories that we share, there's certain things that under the protocol, like Mr. Hollowhorn Bear was suggesting, maybe they tell a story. Well, think about it. Is it Wania too? We only shared our stories in the winter, and stuff like that. Inktomi stories, you share them, this, that, and other in the winter time. So we got to be aware of that as well, following the protocol or explaining it sometimes and understanding the importance of this opportunity. Like, a non-Indian person, when adults are speaking, they run their kids off, Get out of here, don't be listening to adults talk. But think about it. when the older people used to talk in the evening and visit, the children would sit there. They wouldn't participate in the discussion, but they would listen because of the way the language is applied in a very respectful way. So adult talking to white people is different than adult talking amongst us, the Dakota and Lakota. And so as we do these things, we need to understand some of that the way we behave, you know, and how we, like, I like the way he explained that Tahashi, their real rugged debate, and then you refer to him as Tahashi, then you understand you're not going to leave Chazeka, you're going to leave in a good way. So with that all being said, now what is that? Oh, we're going to do the drawing, come on up here. But for me, the lack, because we all want to go eat, we're just starving here in a bit. Before we, right after this, we're going to go into the retirement of the flag. So those individuals that could be standing by, Frank Alibert, Tim Whitecloud, Chief Roberta Oyewashte, and did you get somebody else, Frank, for the provincial flag? Okay. Oh, I was going to ask for a princess here. There's one right here to do the picking. I'd like to have some royalty here. Frank, come up here. Next. Okay. Is everything going good? Okay. Okay, who's going to pick? Come on, Frank. You were the warrior in 1902 Head Start powwow. Yeah. And the first thing is a bag here with what's in there?
Some good stuff.
Can of soup, a loaf of bread, a ring of red. Oh, just a traveling bag, and that goes to Priscilla St. John. Priscilla, are you here? Let you. They want to give you something. Is that you? All right. Could you show us your ID? Oh, next. I was teasing my sister. One guy was looking at all her stuff. I said, this lady's walking, acting like a white woman. She's following you around. Just right there. Knock it off, Tommy, she said. And this is another bag of various items, and it goes to Evelyn Goodtrack. Oh yeah, wash staying. Let you won a prize. Oh here, oh here.
And our last prize is a jacket. I'm a Indigenous fashion designer. So this one here is a jacket. Sorry, bet do watch that. Just kidding, my name is not Sugar. But this one is for the jacket. Deborah Mie. And the lucky winner is, dun dun dun.
Hey, not that old. Okay, based on her good explanation of this blanket, this coat or whatever it is. What is that?
It's a jacket.
Ogle washte ha. Oh, okay. All right, so Taylor Belgard. Tokialawa. Come on over this way if you would, Taylor. You want a really cho jacket. Next powwow, you be walking around. That looks like a snagging jacket. Not a snagging blanket, that's a snagging jacket. You gonna snag or what? Okay, we're gonna ask those individuals if you would. Frank's gonna take out the Eagle staff. Ali Bear, come on over to the white cap flag. Tim Whitecloud, again, Canadian flag. Chief Roberta Sue Oyewashte, come on, help us out, ma'am, with the Union Jack. And the provincial flag will be taken out by Councillor Carson Ben. Carson Ben from Birdtail, right, Carson? Yeah, okay, good job. So again, ladies and gentlemen, right after we take the flags out, has the food been prayed for yet, Frank? and they're going to get somebody to pray for the food. But after take the flags out, we're going to bless the food, and then we'll all eat. We'll all get greasy walking around. Shlo omani. Oh, walking around greasy. But you know, it's been a wonderful time here the last day and a half here, and seen a lot of people that haven't been up here for 2.5 years. So catching up with a lot of folks that I haven't seen for a while. But it's such a good experience, the feeling I have in my heart listening to all you folks visiting and enjoying yourself and being happy. And again, the teasing that goes on, I tease all my relatives and stuff. But in that, it's all well intended. I'm glad nobody come up here and slap me. Oh, remember that guy on the Emmy Awards or something? He went and slapped that other guy. But anyway, we had a good time. With that, I'm going to, ladies and gentlemen, Ushimalo Ksewichashamia Naha. Duake Oyaki Binajipo. Wamni Wapaha, we're going to retire it for the day. So for those of you that are able to rise, we're going to ask you to please rise. And we're going to ask the singers. It's going to be one push-up of the flag song and then out, okay? One and out, we say. But again, we can't say enough about all these fine people. And again, our relatives here are going to help us dance these out. Good job. Good to see them here again. So in a very dignified, honorable way, so we can continue to sustain the integrity of who we are as a people, we're going to go to Dakota Juniors and ask them for one push-up of the flag song. Thank you. Oh, hachitudo. Agichita aloma, hookah he. Hey, apo. Hookah he. Hookah. And again, my relatives, as you go throughout your travels, talk about what you've seen here, what you felt here, what you learned here. Help them understand we're still alive and well in 2022, and will continue to live in a good way as we understand the importance of our tokai takia, our future, our children, our young people, as they represent us in a good way, understanding the influence we like to have on them as they deal with this intergenerational trauma, all these atrocities that have been inflicted on their people. But we can overcome that with the strength and the power and the assistance of our Winuk Chalapi, our Richak Chalapi. And as we do that, we understand that wisdom, that Woksape, is really important to be shared in such a good way, to be able to utilize our virtual experience through this IT perspective and sharing with all of our young people and accepting that as a new way of going forward and making good tracks on this red road of understanding. Hey, ha, hey, wee-ya, wee-ya. Hao hechitula wopila chicha pelo hokapi Dai Chano. Okay, y'all may be seated. Frank, did you recognize somebody to help us out with that Wuchikya? All right. Okay, there we go. Melvina's going to help us out again. I believe that's her. I can't tell. Oh, yeah, that's her. That's her. Okay. Well, now, okay, she's going to tell us all to stand up. Oh, mitakepi inajipo, inajipo. Wuchikya, tawuyete. Oh, how me tui. Dai chano. Wakaya. Bastelo. All right, we're going to ask all of the older folks, if you would, could start lining up, and then after them, the rest of you can line up. But again, we always understand the most important thing that you can, the most respectful thing you can do to another person is provide them with sustenance. So when you come to our homes and stuff, hopefully we can give you a bread, a sandwich, or a cookie, or even a cup of coffee. We could refer to that as a little helping you along the way. So again, really good job. You know, one of the things that we need to not take for granted is an opportunity to really see these educators, some of the old folks coming on this virtual experience and sharing with everybody. So let's not take that for granted, you know, because I do a podcast for the Fort Peck Community College every Thursday. And initially, it was kind of hard for me to do that because, again, I didn't really understand how it was going to be taken, but it was kind of against my nature to do that. But yet, as we went along, we accepted it and we realized the importance that it had on, I guess, the mental health of our people as we provided and shared, not told, but shared these experiences with other people, with other folks, especially our students on the Fort Peck Community College. They became, as soon as they sign up for our college, they become a buffalo chasers. They get into that buffalo chaser society. So again, we need to understand incorporating and adapting to a contemporary way of teaching, you know, kind of sheds a little bit of light on the importance of utilizing these tools to help us maintain that sense of abstract learning, but at the same time, understanding how to get the message out. So thank you very much, Whitecap Uyateki. You did a good job. You guys have hosted a very beautiful gathering again today as it relates to promoting the language. And if you heard the words of my aunt here, Melvina Eagle, she shared with those things that we need to be brave, we need to stand up, we need to represent in a good way some of these things that we talk about here, and then hopefully other Dakota, Nakota, and Lakota people will, the tribes will host something like this and just get us together, speak the language, immersion. That kind of scares a few people as it relates to inability to understand, but they need to realize the importance of developing something that will go beyond that fear and just step up and just start talking Lakota. But anyway, it's been a good time, wonderful time. We enjoyed ourselves. Again, share with what you saw, what you did, what you heard, how it made you feel, all the good things that go on. This is who we are as a people. That's how we maintain the integrity of who we are in a good way, in a positive way, in a respectful way. So, yeah, talk about the people that prayed, the people that spoke, the people that really helped us out and supported these efforts, and good job. So I'd like to say thank you to the committee here, of course, Chief Bear and Councilman Eagle, Councilman Frank, all these guys that helped out, and of course all of you that participated in assisting us, the singers there for providing that opportunity to feel the medicine from the drum, and all these good things, and of course Sheldon for that beautiful pipe ceremony each morning and participating in that and understanding how these good things start. So good job, everybody. Oh man, I'm not going home now. I'm going home tomorrow, but going to hopefully a golf tournament. If anybody sees Curtis standing, tell him to call me and hook me up with that golf tournament in PA tomorrow. Hey, no. Taking pictures, Allie's here, Chief Bear's here. Taking pictures, all that good stuff. So, Manake, wopila chicha palo mitake api hook ahe. Doksha ke wacha ginkte. Mitake oasi.